right, hello everyone. It's time to start. Thank you, Grace, for playing that wonderful slideshow. It was so beautiful. Welcome to the Queer Filmmaker panel hosted by Rainbow Community Center and Real Stories. My name is Valerie Duran, but you could call me Val. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the Youth and Emerging Media Maker Program Manager at BAVC Media. Our mission is to inspire social change by empowering media makers to tell diverse stories. And one way we do that with our youth programs is with Real Stories, where we teach girls and non-binary youth filmmaking skills. I would love to introduce Laura, who is our partner in this presentation. Laura works at Rainbow Community Center. Laura, would you like to introduce yourself, share your pronouns, your role, and Rainbow Community Center's mission?
Hey y'all, thanks for being here tonight. My name's Laura Cartwright. I am the Director of Education at Rainbow Community Center. I'm joined here, I think, by one of our other staff, Parisa. If they want to wave real quick and just say hello, they're our youth program manager. The mission of Rainbow Community Center is really to build community and equity and well-being among lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, and our allies. Our youth program is really striving to support a positive self-identity for all LGBTQI+ youth. And so we're really thrilled to be partnering with BAVC and Real Stories. We're so proud to be here supporting our panelists today and learning from them, and just creating more opportunities for our queer youth to thrive and tell their stories. So we're really pleased to be here, and thank you for everybody joining us.
That is so wonderful, Laura. Thank you so much for sharing. I also want to thank all of the BAVC Media staff, a part of the Real Stories program, who helped make this event possible. Dawn, Grace, Sarah, and also Parisa from Rainbow Community Center. Could you please unmute, take turns to unmute, share your name, your pronouns, your role, and pass it on to the next speaker. Thank you.
Sure, I'll go first. Sorry for the weird lighting. I'm Dawn Valdez. I'm the Director of Youth and Artistic Development at BAVC Media. My pronouns are she and ella, and I'll pass it to Grace.
Hey everyone, my name is Grace Patterson. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a queer filmmaker. I work at BAVC Media as the Operations and Media Producing Associate, and I've been a part of the Real Stories filmmaking program since about 2015. And I will go ahead and pass it to Parisa.
Hi everyone, I'm so excited to be here. My name is Parisa. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm the youth program manager at Rainbow Community Center, and I'm also an associate clinician at Rainbow Community Center. And is there anyone I should be passing it to who still needs to introduce them? Oh, Sarah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, my name's Sarah. I use they, them pronouns, and I am a Real Stories media instructor. I've been with Real Stories since it first began. I was in middle school and I attended the first year of summer camps. And I've just been coming back again and again just because I love the community so much. And now I work here. So I feel a very strong connection to Real Stories. Yeah, are we ready to jump into filmmaker introductions?
Yeah, everyone gave their introductions on our staff side. So now it'd be great to just start our filmmaker panel. And Sarah, if you could introduce the panelists, and then everyone will introduce themselves one by one.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 4 amazing filmmakers with us today. We have Florencia, we have Grace, VJ, and Storm Miguel. And I'm going to pass it to Florencia to say your name and pronouns and to share a little bit about your background, what inspires your passion, and how you ended up on this career path.
Hi everyone, my name is Florencia. I use she, her, ella pronouns. I'm a writer-director, so I do fiction. How I ended on this career path, I actually work as an interpreter and translator, and I also make films. So I don't really make my income from filmmaking, and that was a very intentional choice that I made in my early 20s when I sort of like got a feel for what the industry was like, and I didn't like it. So yeah, and I think they're gonna show a clip now, and then I'll speak about what inspires my passion.
Sorry, some technical difficulties. And here we go.
I can understand more, much more than I can speak it.
Ok. Escribo una nota sobre la inmigración de los latinos en los Estados Unidos.
Vengan por vida mejor, a better life.
Bueno, la nota no se enfoca en las razones por las cuales vienen. La nota se enfoca en las condiciones de vida que tenían allá y las condiciones de vida que tienen aquí.
What? Can you say that slower?
Ok.
Again?
Sí. Quality of life. Allá y aquí.
So people will want to come here when they read your article. Todos querer venir aquí.
You think here is better?
Well, that's why people come here, right?
People come here because of money, only money. Quality of life is not the same as money.
I'm not sure I understand.
See, to buy things, the car, the house, the cell phone, security, these things are important. But your family y relationships y tu cultura, that's what's really important.
Yeah, you're right, of course, yeah.
And you think it's easy to leave that and come here to buy food for the family.
You wouldn't move here if you could?
To the United States? No.
No?
No, never.
Why not?
Everything here is backwards. Los valores, the values, wrong values. And I love my city.
Where do you live?
In Caracas, Venezuela. ¿Sabes?
Yeah. What's it like?
Es muy linda, es colorida, tiene unas montañas increíbles, tiene casas construidas en todas las montañas y las ves cuando vas entrando a la ciudad por todas partes. You travel in Latin America?
No, but in high school, my friend went to go visit her family in Mexico.
México. México. Don't say México como una gringa.
Mexico.
México. Your parents, they are born here?
No, they came from Nicaragua before I was born.
¿En qué parte de Nicaragua?
My mom is from León, pretty sure, but she met my dad, wherever he's from. I can't remember the place of the name.
Nicaragua has a big political history. Do you know why your parents come here?
I think they came here just because they wanted to.
I hope that one day you can visit your parents' land.
Yeah, I will. I will.
Okay. I was hoping that watching that clip would inspire me to answer this question. What inspires your passion? I think I make movies and I write scripts just based on the conversations that I want to have, like in the world, with the world. Like I think that is a good example. It's funny because the most recent thing I made is this little short that is also kind of a conversation between people from very different like lived experiences. Actually, it's like an intergenerational thing. And when I've been asked about it, it's kind of like a conversation where I feel like I'm kind of like the bridge between those two communities or perspectives. And so in making the film, I'm trying to like bridge those differences or those like polarized perspectives. Anyway, so that's one way to answer it. I pass it to the next person.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing. That was an incredible clip. Now I'm going to ask Grace to share your name and pronouns, and I'll ask you the same questions. Share a little bit about your background, what inspires your passion, what your role is with Real Stories, and what led you to pursue film.
Hi, I'm Grace Kelly. I'm a senior in high school and I use she, her pronouns. I decided to join Real Stories and take Real Stories because I became interested in film, and it finally kind of gave me, it was like the first community that really I felt like I belonged in. And so it was a nice introduction and a nice transition to just feel welcome into like the filmmaking community. I found filmmaking by kind of just, I mean, I didn't really see myself a lot. I think a lot of people can relate to that in media. And so instead of like constantly searching, I kind of got tired of that. So I decided I want to make my own little representation that a lot of people can relate to as well. And I want to highlight not only my voice, but other people's voices. So I love, I've started making like films based on like the poems that my friends write about how they feel and things like that. So I really just like the community of filmmaking and I want to spread it with other people. And what inspires me is being able to highlight voices and just being able to like have a conversation, even though I'm not the best with like just an in-person discussion, just words. I'm a lot better doing it visually. So I think that's where filmmaking really helps me express my opinions.
Okay, amazing. And we are going to show a short clip of a film that Grace Kelly worked on.
Democracy requires more than just voting. It requires collective. Democracy requires more than just voting. It requires collective action.
The divides in our country and the hatred and racism will only get worse if we do not act now.
This will be a time period that historians look back on as being one of those pivotal times in American history.
This kind of urgency that has never been so apparent, I think, in an election before.
You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the pussy.
Does ban Syrian refugees from entering the U.S. indefinitely, and it also issues a 90-day ban on nearly all travelers from 7 predominantly Muslim countries.
I'm here today to announce that the program known as DACA is being rescinded.
A dangerous game of chicken as 2 nuclear-armed leaders threaten to destroy the other.
The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord.
Article 1 is adopted. Article 2 is adopted.
there's so many people who will be so hurt by another 4 years by a president and an administration like the one we have today.
Trump has shown himself to be a terrible leader in these past 4 years.
The presidential debate was unlike any other presidential debate that I have ever seen.
We're not emulating these people who are the leaders of our country. We're going to change the story. It was just
That was amazing, Grace. I also just want to say that Grace has been working on an incredible film that has so much visual storytelling and symbolism in it and really speaks to everything that she was talking about in her inspirations. And it will be available to watch on May 31st. So I hope all of you get the chance to watch it because it is incredible. But now I'm going to pass it over to VJ. And again, same thing. Would you please share your name and pronouns and speak about your background, roll with real stories, what caused you to want to go into filmmaking, and some of your inspirations?
Yeah, of course. My name is VJ Spencer, and I use they, he pronouns. I started Real Stories in 7th grade, I think, like that summer. And it was just like the best thing ever. It made me so happy. And that was probably the point where it really like sparked my interest in filmmaking. My dad is a writer, so he kind of like introduced it to me when I was younger, but this whole like interest in it was really fueled by summer at Real Stories and being a part of that community and being able to like be in a group of people that are so like-minded to me and accepting and able, like we were all able to communicate with each other and make the films that we wanted to make. Yeah, about my like passion for this, it's my inspiration, oh no, notifications, I'm sorry. I always felt like I never saw anyone that was like myself in any media, or if it was like through being a part of like the fan zones where people could like take the character and make it more like themselves. And I got to the point where I was like, well, why don't I just make those characters? Why don't I tell the stories that I always wanted to see? And that's a lot of why I make films and why I want to, is because it's just, I love telling stories. It is my passion. It's my art form. It is just something I love. I think it's the best way to reach people and the best way to educate, and I guess I wouldn't say change people's minds, but at least open them a little bit, because people really like to resonate with emotion and stories. So yeah. And then can I say a little something about the clip that we're going to show?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, so this film I'm super proud of. It was the first film that I made entirely myself, like wrote, direct, produced everything. And it actually got me into a really prestigious like summer school that I'm going to be going to. And this one was super important to me as well because it was based off of my own kind of experience with representation and things like that. So yeah.
Hey. Okay. Hey. Hey, you're Cat, right? It's Charlie now. He's cool. He's one of us guys. You know? Yeah, cool. Yeah, so sorry about that, dude. He's a good guy, I promise. No, it's okay. It happens sometimes. Yeah. So, what are you doing after school? Oh, I was gonna go hang out at the park with the guys if you want to come with. Oh, yeah, sure. I'll do that. Yeah, great. Well, I'll see you later, Kat. Or Charlie. Sorry. It's fine. Bye.
Oh my God, Charlie, look.
Oh my goodness, I forgot we had those.
Me too.
I'm surprised it still fits me, actually.
Same, these are old. Dude, your room's a mess.
Your room is 10 times messier than my room. I got you.
Run.
Whoa.
Where did you get this?
I think I thrifted that a few years ago.
It looks amazing. Yeah, you dress like a frat bro.
I choose comfort over style.
Charlie, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you to. You look straight.
I am anything
Hold this
but
to
a
your
straight
body.
man.
Charlie, up. Hold, show.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
All right. See?
I think
1,000
this is
times
great,
better.
actually.
It
This
is great.
Great.
Come on. Picture time.
Okay.
Thank you so much, VJ. Yeah, that film is incredible. I hope you get to watch the full thing if it should be up on YouTube. Yeah, last but not least, I'm going to pass it to Storm Miguel. And I'm going to ask you as well to please share your name and pronouns, speak about your background and education, inspirations, and what led you down your career path.
Thank you so much. I love everything I've seen so far. It's really great to get to see all your work, and I'm so excited to see more, and I'm so excited to hear what y'all have to say the rest of the evening. My name is Storm Miguel Flores. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm a trans masculine-ish queer Chicane filmmaker. And I live with sometimes debilitating chronic pain and vocal cord spasms, which feels really important for me to say because filmmaking, like, well, the rest of the world, but filmmaking is such an inaccessible space for people with disabilities and chronic illness. And so I want to bring that here into the room just because I'd like to be available to talk about that, especially with other folks who live with chronic illness and disability. And it's just something I've been thinking a lot about. So I just want to speak that out loud. I direct, edit, and produce. And now I'm writing for a new project, which is kind of new for me. Writing, I mean, I've always written, but writing a writing a script, a screenplay is like really different and intense and kind of scary, but I'm excited about it too. And it's for an upcoming project that I'm working on. But I think before I say more, we're going to show a clip, and it's a trailer from my most recent and also first feature documentary called The Whistle. And it's a documentary about lesbian youth culture in Albuquerque, New Mexico in the 1970s and 80s. That's very specific, I know. And I'm in it because it's also was my community growing up. I was identified as a young lesbian or young dyke back then. So before I say more, I guess let's watch that.
Can you just try to do the whistle?
Okay. See nothing.
I don't even remember the first time we learned it or the first time I learned it. I don't remember it all.
I was always just like, who started this? Who started this? This is so cool. And nobody knew.
I don't recall exactly how I learned it.
I have no idea where the whistle came from. It's an Albuquerque myth.
Albuquerque was packed full of queers.
We were from all over the city. There were 10 high schools at the time, and yet we all knew each other.
I remember at some point having some conversations about, oh my gosh, did you know that such and such was gay? Did you know that?
we were like,
this person is not just my friend, this is my girlfriend. And I was like, yes.
We would congregate at parties or at games.
There were some after-hour clubs that under 18 could go. I'll never forget the first time I went to one and 30 or 40 different people that I saw from other high schools were there.
At the time, we used the whistle.
Using the whistle was a little indication to whoever I was whistling to that I'm a lesbian too.
It was part of our secret code. It was part of the language that we used in order to, gosh, I guess it was to protect ourselves.
We're still in the closet. I mean, we still had to be careful on who kind of found out about us.
We knew that there was a line, and don't go past that line.
What would it have been like if I would have been born into a world where I could be exactly who I am and be celebrated for that?
The priest told me pretty much not to worry about it, that this is a phase. Well, you know, here it is 40 years later, and I'm still living out this phase.
Thanks for watching that. You know, I actually got started late in life making films. Music was my first form of artistic expression. Like I was writing songs at the age of 10 and singing and performing for my family. And most of my life was around performing. And around 40 years old, 10 years ago, my interest in video editing kind of showed up. And it showed up around the same time I was inspired to make a music video, my first music video for one of my songs. And so I decided to give it a try and see if I could do it myself. With some help, of course, I went into the QuackMap program, Queer Women of Color Media Arts Project. And I wasn't sure at the time if I would fit into the program. I was asking them for resources, and they told me that they were open to all trans people. And so I participated in the program and made my first short film, which was a zombie music video for a country drinking song. And I decided like it was going to be a test for myself. Like if I was happy with how it turned out, if I was happy with the editing that I did on that, I actually raised money to hire a camera person because I am not a camera person. You know, that if I was happy with it, that I would pursue editing. That was the thing I was primarily interested in. And so I was happy, and since then I've done a combination of editing and producing and directing on 3 different feature films, and now I'm working on developing and directing my first feature narrative. Also I have a post-production certification through BAVC, through their post-production. So yeah, and inspiration, I'm inspired by what's happening in life. I mean, I've always been inspired to create something, and it's just a little more behind the camera now, even though I am doing some acting. So yeah, thanks for having me here.
Thank you so much for sharing. Is that film available to stream or purchase anywhere?
Yes, so it is available on New Mexico PBS's website. I think you can watch it from anywhere at this point. You can stream it at NMPBS. And it's also available through a platform called Lesflix in the UK. And then I believe it's also available on Vimeo on demand. I think I kept that up. But yeah, if you want to check it out, you can just go to my website, which I can just put in the chat here. You can see all the places to watch it there.
Thank you so much. And Florencia, I want to ask you the same thing. Is the movie that you shared available to stream anywhere?
Yeah, I think it's also on Lesflix, actually. I think that might be the only place where it's available currently. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you all so much for sharing. Your work is beautiful and amazing. Now we can move into our Q&A portion. So I'll start with asking what media is inspiring you right now? And anyone can jump in and answer this question.
I can start since I just watched the Netflix Heartstopper show. So I read the comic. I was obsessed with the comic forever. And then I watched the show when it came out, and it blew my mind. And it's like one of the things where I was like, oh my God, that is something that we need so desperately. Because it's happy queer romance, and it has so much incredible representation in it, with a trans woman playing a trans woman, and oh my God, I love it so much. It made me cry. Yeah, that's one thing that like completely just like, it's like Mom, I'm talking, go away. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm so sorry. That was my mother. Sorry about that. But yeah, Heartstopper is probably my favorite show right now. And the most inspiring thing to me currently. So
I'm laughing over here because I watched it multiple times this week, and I was like having a hard time thinking of anything else. I was like, okay, can I mention anything other than Heartstopper? Because like I have been so obsessed with it this week. I think that also it's just like for our generation, I think that like watching queer kids having like a not traumatizing high school experience and having so much support from everybody around them, like they all have supportive families, supportive friends, like protective, like a whole protective environment. And I think that at least for those in my generation, like most of us did not have that. So there's some sort of like cathartic element to it that makes it like just really magical. Yeah, anyway, so that's definitely something I've been watching a lot as well.
I'm really gonna have to get around to watching it. I haven't gotten around to it yet, but I really, really want to.
I personally am like, oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna prompt if anyone else wanted to answer. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. Like I'm just emotionally like still hungover on Our Flag Means Death, but I'm trying to like get myself over it. So I think Heartstopper is the next step for me. But yeah, Our Flag Means Death. I really I loved having the character, if anyone's seen it, the character Jim. I love how them like identifying their identity so early in the series, and really not like going overboard with it, but just kind of casually slipping it in, because it should be just a casual thing. Just your identity should be a casual thing in our society. So I love how they just created this world where like really identity is something for the individual, and it's really not judged by anyone there.
Oh my God, I love both of those shows, and I love what you just said about the character Jim. And I was thinking about this, and Taika Waititi, Our Flag Means Death. I'm really into right now. I'm like really enjoying non-conventional filmmaking. So like mockumentaries, like things that break the fourth wall or just kind of get around like what we're told we're supposed to do. And so I think of like Abbott Elementary and What We Do in the Shadows. And there's a film that I just saw called How Not to Date While Trans that played at the Translations Film Festival this past weekend. And that's definitely one to check out if you get a chance to see it. I'm sure it'll be playing all of the queer film festivals. But it's a very kind of like fiction, but the protagonist constantly breaks the fourth wall to bring the audience along on the journey. And I think it's because my next project is going to be a mockumentary, my next directorial and my next writing project. And so I'm just like, what can I get my hands on? What can I just love that. And that they're often very funny and clever. And so I'm hoping to get some inspiration in that area as well. So.
Yes, this has just made me realize that I really need to like catch up on all of the shows that I've been meaning to watch. I also haven't seen Our Flag Means Death yet. So like I really need to watch it. Yeah, thank you all. The next question is also to everyone. How does your identity influence your creative work? Which I know is kind of a big question.
I can start once again.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a hard one. But I think that a lot of it, like a lot of like I was so early and like I remember being in like third grade and figuring out what all this was, and I just feel like so incredibly lucky that I was able to have those. Like I had the internet in third grade and I was able to look stuff up and like do that. So like growing up with that and being super young with my family being like not really wanting to hide us from anything like that and being pretty accepting of that was like such a huge thing growing up. But I always felt like I'm still young, but I always felt like I never saw enough. And like in the shows that I super loved so much, like, or even like the books that I loved, it was always like, oh, I like this story so much and I wish I was like them, but it's just not like me. Like the one example that's in my mind so much is the Percy Jackson books. I grew up with them. I loved them so much. There was only one gay character, Nico D'Angelo, and he was my favorite because he was the gay character and because I felt like I could like resonate with him at least a little bit because we had that one thing in common. So it was that's like one thing where it's like I've noticed all of this lacking in representation, and I'm lucky to be young and to be seeing all these new artists come out who are around my age or older than me who are now bringing this more representation. But I would love to be a part of that as well and start putting my story out there and just stories of anybody that I can find. Really, like I want to know. I am so inspired by just people who are willing to tell their own stories and willing to have people listen to their stories, no matter what it is, even if it's just fiction that they've come up with or representation of themselves, like things like that. I hope that wasn't too much of just rambling, but yeah.
No, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, that was an incredible answer. And what you were talking about with Percy Jackson just kind of made me think about how when I was maybe in like elementary school, I also found myself relating to all the queer characters. And like that was a huge part of me figuring out my identity too. So it really just goes to show how important it is to have these characters, and like what all of you are here doing is just so, so important. So yeah, thank you so much, VJ, for sharing.
I'm thinking a lot about like seeing yourself represented as a young person, and I think for me and maybe Florencia, I'm not sure exactly where we are as far as age difference, but for me it was like seeing who I could read queer into, but then they all ended up coming out as queer later. So like Joe Polnicek on The Facts of Life, Nancy McKeon. I think Nancy McKeon came out as queer, but Christy McNichol, like there was a show in the 70s where Christy McNichol played this little butch kid named Buddy. And that was the first time I saw somebody that looked like me, even though I didn't know what that meant. And, years later, I got to understand what that meant. And, but yeah, that's also what inspires me, VJ. It's like knowing that, like, there just isn't enough representation out there of us, right? Like, all the stories I've directed and produced have somehow been related to queerness or transness. And that'll probably always be the case, right? Because we're creating our stories and that's who we are. And, one of the things I've noticed is that a lot of trans and non-binary filmmakers, when we make narrative projects, we often put ourselves physically in them. We often act in them. And I think that's just because there aren't enough. We don't see ourselves enough. So much so that we need to put ourselves in there. Because we're like, I know how to play this. We're not getting access to each other in a lot of ways, to other actors and to other filmmakers, which is why I'm so happy that we have things like this. But yeah, and also we don't see ourselves enough, so much that we want to put ourselves physically in our films a lot. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm 8 years younger than you, Stormy. And I didn't grow up in the States, so I think that experience of not seeing yourself was exacerbated because we were, it's like the US has kind of imperial dominion over like the media of the world. So I grew up like watching a lot of American TV and definitely obviously did not see myself represented or anybody in my community. And then in my country's media, definitely like no queer women whatsoever. So yeah, I think that's why I'm so committed to indie filmmaking, because I feel like that's the only place where I could see like those pockets of representation where it's like, oh, this is actually relatable, and not just like packaged in a way that felt so completely alien. Doesn't mean that I didn't appreciate, mainstream media, but yeah, actually Storm Miguel posted about by hook or by crook, that feature made by a trans filmmaker who's amazing. And I remember when I watched that movie, I think it was probably, I was in my early 20s, and I think it was probably the first time that I felt like I saw people from my community on screen, and like it was as if it was made by someone who could be my friend, the very, very first time. Because even like the L Word was out at the time, and that also felt completely like alien, non-represented, even though it was fun to watch, but so I think if the question was like, how does your identity, like how is it related to the stuff that you create, I am definitely always have just been interested in showing like what my community is like, what my life is like, what my experience is like. And actually, like, I made my web series Dyke Central a lot in response to like the L Word, because we were all watching, we like, this is ridiculous, nobody is like that. I mean, it turns out actually like LA lesbians are a lot like that. Like that is, I think, maybe representative of some people, but definitely nobody in my community, and nobody, none of my friends. So anyway, so yeah, okay, my ramble's over.
Yeah, I think just I like to call myself indecisive because I am bisexual and half Irish, half Asian. So it's like very like I never felt like I belonged fully in one community until I found filmmaking, and that was when I got to represent myself as a person, just as a human being in general, which felt really good. And I feel like just everyone should be able to have that in their it should be like breathing, like you shouldn't have to like think about whether or not you're represented in a film. And so I think just knowing that lack of identity, and for the longest time not being able to tell my family, and just not having that support is why I want to provide it for other people, because a lot of them, sometimes they don't know how to express it. And so I want to be an outlet, be like, hey, this helped me, maybe it can help you. And I want to be that support for someone else as well, because real stories and just filmmaking and just my beloved cameras in general have just been so much, have provided so much comfort for me and created just a second family for me to really express myself and be myself. So I think that's what fuels my passion and how I express my filmmaking.
Thank you all so much. Yeah, that's all like so important. Yeah, I just want to say, Florencia, I was watching Dyke Central and definitely see what you're talking about in comparison to the L Word. Like when I was watching Dyke Central, I felt like the characters were my friends, especially being from the Bay Area. Like it just felt like the exact dynamic. And then watching something like the L Word, I'm like feel so estranged from that whole experience. And I'm just trying to think of queer characters in the mainstream media that fulfill that representation for me, and I'm having so much trouble right now. And if they do seem kind of like a realistic character, then they have some type of horrible home life, or like end up dying or something like that. So we just need to end that. We just need to end that. So yes, thank you all for answering that question. Our next question is going to be to Florencia and Miguel and Storm Miguel. So what are some challenges that you faced at the beginning of your career, and how did you overcome them?
I can go first if you want. I would say that like internalized sexism was the main challenge. I really had a lack of like confidence. I was surrounded by like, I went to film school and there were a lot of like boys, like overly confident boys who were like, I'm gonna make this and it's gonna be amazing. And I remember being like, oh my God, like, how do you know like that what you're gonna make is amazing? And like, what, like, how do you know that like you have something that's worth investing all of these resources, you know? And that it took a like, it took a while to sort of be like, oh, well, I have something that I want to make. And I think I had worked on like tons of other people's projects in different capacities. Like I really knew my way around a set. And I had seen like so many terrible films get made and like just terrible, just pointless, really. I mean, that's the thing for me. I'm like, if you're gonna invest all of that energy and like, even if everybody's working for free, it's like you're using up so much of everyone's time. Like you have to be like, there has to be a point to it. Like you're trying to say something, you're doing it for a reason, not just to be cool. So I think that when I got to the point where I was like, okay, you know, I really want to see this kind of film, you know, and like I'm making it for people like me at least. But yeah, it took a while. And I think that like just finding my voice, like it took me many years. I feel like it wasn't until my late 20s when I first started to be like, what I had to say was worth it. I think things are really different now, but when I was in my 20s and when I went to film school and everything, it was like extremely male dominated world. And there were no like initiatives, you know, like trying to support like people from like perspectives that are not like white men, so white cis men. So yeah, I'm hoping that this new generation has a very different experience, and that like people who are not socialized like as men, as white men, like don't have to go like through such a huge internal process to like overcome that. Yeah. What about you, Stormy?
I had to like monitor my head nodding. I was like, just like, calm down. Like, this is like, I'm gonna give myself whiplash. Imposter syndrome. I think that for so many of us who aren't white cis men in this society, that imposter syndrome is like one of the first things we all deal with. And you know, also, you know, for those of us who didn't go to film school, like I think film school is really it for a lot of people. And I know so many people who went, and that was the place. That was the place they found community. It was the place they learned what they were doing, and that's the way that they learn. And I've never been an academic learner, and so you know, not going to film school, I think I've had a lot of insecurity around that, and you know, I think so that's been a challenge, and across the board, not just with school. I mean, not just with film, but like with music, with, you know, with any art that I've done, with any jobs that I've done. You know, when I've gone to work at an office and I've had all this experience, but then I get hired at a junior level position because I don't have that college degree. Like that has been the kind of a constant in my life. And I think the older I get, and the more I've found programs, like I'm really lucky. I came in at a time when QuackMap was right there and ready for me, and I was ready for it. And then BAVC as well through SF Tech. That those are places that I got really supported, and you know, and got to understand that like, oh, there are other avenues in addition to film school, besides film school, where that are just as valid, right, for some of us. And again, like I really get some people learn really well in film school, but then there's some people who really learn well on set or through programs, through training programs, or just by, making a scrappy film and seeing how it feels. And yeah, and for me it was doing that and seeing how it felt and how I thought it looked. Like it was definitely like not a thing where I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna make this, it's gonna be great. It's like, I'm gonna make this, let's see how it goes, maybe I'll, and I think we make ourselves so small sometimes when we're doing these things, and we're not kind of trained to just be like, yes, I am gonna make this. But I do think there's something really good about that too, is that we're discerning, we're considerate of people's time, we're considerate of our community's money when we're doing crowdsource fundraising. Like, I think there's that plus side to not being kind of gifted this confidence from, the time we're born and throughout our lives. I feel like there's so much that we bring to the table because of that, and that our sets are the most awesome to work on because of it. So
Yeah, thank you both for sharing. It just reminds me, like what both of you guys spoke about really reminds me of when I went to college and ended up taking some film classes, and how that experience just made me appreciate real stories so much more. I already appreciated it so much, but like being in classes that are so male dominated, and then also having a male professor and having your voice never really make an impression on anyone, because the professor and the boys are just bouncing off each other the whole time. Yeah, like it's just definitely made me appreciate the real stories space, where we have queer people and we have women and we have people who just want to make the space a community and much more collaborative, and actually want to listen to what everyone has to offer. Yeah. So our next question is for Grace and VJ. So as an emerging filmmaker, what do you see as the future of film? Which is also another kind of big question.
Well, wow. Part of me wants to be like, well, me, but I want to see more people like me, more people who are in a minority or multiple minorities. I'm pretty I'm pretty like I've set up for myself my whole like path to be a filmmaker and to make that my career, because I'm so dedicated to the art and so dedicated wanting to see more people like me in the industry as well as on screen, and have more people that I can proudly say that like like they're my role model. I feel like that was such a hard thing for me, because in an application to something, I had to like talk about who my film role model was and someone I really loved. I did end up writing my essay, but it was really hard for me to pick someone because there wasn't anybody like me who made some really great films that I really loved. Like the only couple like movies and things that I could think about were either like heavily queer coded or made by Asian directors, but male Asian directors. So it was like, oh, it wasn't super like me even. So yeah, being able to be a role model for kids, I think, is something that like we need more of, and less like controversy. Less of that and more positive role models in the filmmaking industry, because I want people to be proud of going into it and not be like, oh my God, this is a capitalist nightmare, because a lot of it is. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I want to see queer representation in media. I want to see it so much that I don't notice it anymore, and it's just kind of there. Like I don't have to think about it, or I don't have to like look in between the lines of the characters and see which one could possibly be like me or be like this person or that. I want like the conversations between about like TV shows to be more like, who's your favorite character? Oh, I like the gay character. Which one? There's like five. I would prefer that over um, what VJ was saying before about really only being able to identify with the one gay character that they added for diversity reasons. I just I want to bring more comfort into the world, and um, I want to make filmmaking in that field seem less like um cis straight like male dominated kind of a field, and kind of make it be like anyone can dream of it. Anyone can be like, I think I want to go into film, without being scared or feeling alone because they don't have a community as incredible as this. So I want it to be as simple and unnoticeable as breathing, like I said earlier.
Yeah, I completely agree. And what you were talking about kind of reminded me of Legend of Korra. I'm sure a lot of people here are familiar. Yes, they had two characters, Korra and Asami, and at the very end, at least in my opinion, seemed like they just decided to make them queer for the representation. And it just really did not feel like they put any thought into it. They just were like trying to like gather their token characters. So yeah, I'm just super tired of stuff like that being in the media and like that being our representation that we have. So our next question is for Florencia and Storm Miguel. What words of wisdom or advice do you have for emerging filmmakers?
You keep going first, so I guess I'll go. You know, I mean, I think I have so much to learn from emerging filmmakers. I just want to start with that. I think that there's so much happening now that I don't know about and that I don't understand. And so just for starters, like there's so much for me to learn. And, you know, from my own experience, and maybe what I would tell myself, you know, the young me is that, like, just keep doing what you're doing. Like, I've always been making art. It's always been important to me. And there have been these moments where I felt really defeated. Like when I first moved to San Francisco as a musician, and I came from Albuquerque, where I was kind of a big fish, and then I came here and I was a tiny little guppy, and nobody really cared about my music or my art. And I had to really rude awakening and understanding that like I was really dependent on people's response to my art. My self-worth really was dependent on that, and like really, really dependent on that. And so I had to do some kind of soul searching and some really deep work for myself to try to like unravel that a bit. And you know, I even took a break from playing music because I was just like, wow, I am really tied up in this. This is all my self-worth is tied up in this. And so, you know, I did a lot of work around that and really didn't start playing again until I could just play for myself and the people who really wanted to hear my music. Like it was really important for me that that's my audience, and I was able to bring that with me into filmmaking. And so you know, there's times when you get those grant rejections and you get those film festival rejections, and that just happens to all of us. And just that that is not about who you are and your talent. You know, it's about what they're looking for programming, or sometimes people just they don't like our work and they don't vibe with our work, and that's also okay because there are going to be people that do, right? If we're already doing this and we know we want to do this, that's because we've made a connection. And so I think just staying really true to that connection and staying really connected to that connection, like focusing there, focusing where the love is, focusing where the respect is, and where that, yeah, just where you're really vibing with people and they're vibing with you. and keep trying, keep submitting, keep making films, keep going out for that grant money, keep trying to do that, and and then it'll bite. It's like fishing sometimes. I don't know. I've only been fishing like twice in my life, so maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But from what I see in the movies, it's like fishing. Like you sit there and you're like doing your thing, and occasionally you get a bite, and sometimes it gets away, but sometimes you get it, and but like you do it because you love it. And so I just say like make it like. I think because getting it caught up in your self-worth caught up in that can ruin it. Like it can ruin it, like, and just so like making sure that it stays something you love and doing whatever you have to do to make it, to keep that relationship strong and ignited. And sometimes that means getting other day jobs, other day gigs so that you can support your filmmaking. And so you're not everything is tied into that, because when everything is tied into that, you can get really bogged down in things that don't matter, or in just like trying to survive. And if there's a way to separate survival and creativity, if there is a way of doing that, then that is, for me, has been the key.
Well, I agree with so much of what Storm Miguel said. I have separated my means of survival from my creative thing, so I totally with that. And actually what I wrote down, it's very similar to what Storm Miguel was saying. Is like really don't chase trends, like figure out who you are, what you want to create, why, and really stick to that, because it can be very distracting. I mean, the trends of like what they're looking for, even like, for example, just the landscape of what is like what the medium of the day is, like from not just thematically, but also like the format, and the way things are done. Like it changes like every 6 months, if not more quickly than that, and I think that if you're focused on like doing something that you think will sell, or it's like, oh, this is popular, let me try and do this so that I can like sell it or get attention or be trendy, I don't think that's sustainable. Like I don't think that's sustainable emotionally and like spiritually as an artist. And it's also like you're just going to be just very ungrounded, because you're going to be constantly like chasing, oh wait, what's the trend? It's always something outside of us, so centering your creative focus on you and like who you are. I mean, and it'll take years, don't think that like you will figure out who you are and what you're meant to say, what you want to say. Like, in fact, and it's not a fixed thing either, right? So we grow into that. But I think always like creating what Storm Miguel was saying, like creating for the process, for the thing itself, and not for like the accolades or recognition or to get likes or to get whatever it is, whatever the external validation is. It's nice when it's there. When it's not, it's like you need a little bit of it to get you, like, we're not like painters, right? Or like we need an audience to view our stuff, and therefore we have to interact with that element to a certain degree. But yeah, as much as possible, try and like really stay grounded on like who you are, why you're doing what you're doing, and it's not a popularity contest. I mean, what is your goal? To me, my goal is having a sustainable like artistic practice for my entire life. What is going to make that sustainable is like focusing on the center of that creative like impulse. Oh yeah, and then I think I wrote one more thing, which is specific to filmmaking: work on as many film sets as possible. This kind of tracks back to like the film school thing. Like for me, it wasn't like I didn't learn filmmaking in classes at all. It was definitely being on sets. Like that was and you don't have to go to film school to be on sets, but I worked on like a film shoot every single weekend for like 3-4 years, and that's how you learn like how you want to like run a set, like what position, like really what positions like fit your personality. Like I worked as an AD a lot, so now on my own shoots I create the schedules because I have that brain, and then there's like I also worked as script supervisor, so like I have that experience as a director, and there's people who come from like production design, more experience, or camera. Anyways, but definitely like try and be on as many sets, like help on as many productions as possible, because that's your film school right there.
Thank you both. Yeah, that is all such valuable information. I really liked what I was hearing about separating your means of survival from your creative process and like your passions. It's so easy to get caught up in and swept away by turning what you love into a job. So that's really, really important. And also just like kind of redefining what a successful film means. Like if it doesn't necessarily get a ton of likes or a ton of views, or you don't get a ton of money from it, at the end of the day, if it's a film that you really love, then it's a successful film and you've succeeded. Even just like creating a film is a huge success. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Lovely answers. Thank you, everyone. We're gonna open it up now to audience questions. So you can either unmute and ask your question, or you can drop it in the chat, and we'll get to it.
I have a question. I'd love to hear from everybody what your first example of queer representation in media was for you, whether it was an actually queer character or a queer coded character, and how that left an impact on you as a filmmaker.
I'm happy to speak to that. I might name two, because the first one, it was one that it was when I didn't know I was queer, but then later looking back, I'm like, oh, that is a queer movie. There's a movie called Times Square, that is like a teenage runaway movie. Tim Curry's in it. He plays a DJ named Johnny LaGuardia, and it's like it takes place in New York, and it's a love story. And at the time, I wouldn't have called it that, but looking back, I'm like, oh no, there is a love story here. There's something going on that's more than just two friends. But then, like the first movie, like I saw like a handful of like lesbian movies when I was a teenager. There was like Desert Hearts, and there was like these movies that were like these kind of, they were even older than me, so I wasn't totally relating to them. But then Go Fish came out like in '89 or '90, and that film was the first film that I ever saw that I felt like, oh, that's what my life is like, and that's what my people are like. And I guess it must have been about 20 or so when that came out. But it was the first representation that looked like my people and me, and it was also a queer movie. And it's a hard one to find, but it's still one of my favorite queer movies ever.
I'll follow generationally. I think the first one that I can remember was Heavenly Creatures, with Kate Winslet and Melanie, which it's tricky because it's like about like two girls that had like mental health issues, and committed a murder. But I remember being like excited by it. But yeah, that's what we got. It was very like pathologized. And then maybe a couple years later, so I think I was like 14, 15 when that came out. And also I remember monitoring like the responses of like my friends, or like the group that I went to the movies with, and they're like, oh, like lesbians. And then there was one that was like about like, it was a youth hostel or something. It was like a European kind of thing, and that movie, like it was the main character was like this white guy, I can't remember. They were all like European from different countries. But there was like masculine of center, like woman, like lesbian, who like befriends him, and they have this kind of like romantic friendship. And she's like, oh, like I wish you were a girl, you know. And that was my first time sort of seeing like the type of person that I'm attracted to on screen. And I was like, yeah, that was exciting. I remember that. I can't remember the name. I think there was a sequel. It had the word dolls in it. I can't remember. Anyway, those were the first that I can remember, and that's a long time ago. 90s.
I think my first queer media, or like the queer representation on film, was Legend of Korra, which, as we talked about, wasn't like the greatest way, but I mean, I still saw it. It was when I was really young, so I just thought they were friends. That changed very quickly when I realized my identity, my sexual orientation. But I unfortunately wasn't really exposed to too much diversity with what I watched as a kid. So I'm still being introduced slowly. So I think the reason why I'm so hung up on Our Flag Means Death and watched it like 4 or 5 times now is because it's probably the first movie that's really shown being queer as like just the like casual, but it's also like the main concept at the same time. And it's so welcoming. It's so much more realistic, even though it's about pirates, than any of the other media I've seen. So I think, yeah, like literally the first one was Legend of Korra, and then the one that really stuck with me and helped me through things was Our Flag Means Death.
You guys got me thinking like way back. My first thought from like way back was My Little Pony. Applejack was like a tomboy, and I was immediately like, oh my god, it's the I'm not like other girls trope. And I absolutely loved Applejack. There's a couple. There's Applejack from My Little Pony. Literally still love her. Or on High School Host Club, the anime. If any of you guys know it, Haruhi Fujioka, is that her name? I don't know. That was probably my first introduction to like someone being born female at birth, but also like not feeling that way or not caring about that, which was like eye-opening. And it helps that Kyoya was in it too, because I absolutely like fell in love with him in like 5th grade. So that one was probably like one of the biggest things, because my sister also loved it, so like we would watch it together, and it was like our little thing. And it would like we both had our favorites and would like yell at each other about it. So but the most eye-opening thing was a YouTuber named Miles McKenna, who I still like intermittently watch. And he makes all his videos about being trans and things like that. And I watched through his transition, and I like his channel means so much to me, because that was like where I was starting to really understand my own identity and become more comfortable in it. And I was able to talk about him with my friends because we both loved him. Like so it was a lot of YouTubers and yeah, anime and My Little Pony, I guess.
Thank you all so much. Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up anime, because same. There's a lot of characters that were queer coded that I found a lot of like, I just saw myself in so much. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. It looks like we have one more question in the chat directed to Storm Miguel, and it's, how is your film Volvita going? Which I love that name, by the way.
Volvita is a film that I got to work on. Started out as an actor, edited it, and then kind of in the end had done so much that I became a co-producer. And it's a film by Maria Bro. who's done some great work. She's a Bay Area filmmaker, and it's a mockumentary that's about a riot girl, 90s riot girl band that's getting back together in our middle plus age lives. And yeah, Don was an extra at the punk show. And so it's going great, Nicole. It's actually, I can't say much, but what I can say is we're about to announce our premiere, and that is all I can say. So it's about to happen.
Thank you so much. I think we're at time for questions, but thank you all so much. You're all such amazing, talented filmmakers, and I'm so happy that we all got to talk tonight.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for moderating the panel, Sarah. Thank you to the filmmakers, Storm McGill and Florencia, for joining us, and our student filmmakers. I also want to give a big shout out to the Rainbow Community Center team and the BAVC Media Real Stories team who made this event possible. If you would like to learn more information about our upcoming events, you can follow Rainbow Community Center on Instagram at Rainbow Center and Rainbow Youth Program. And I hope Grace can put this in the chat as well, just so everyone could read it. And to learn more about our Real Stories and BAVC Media Instagram is Camp Real Stories at BAVC Media and at BAVC Youth. We have, for our youth programs, we have an event this Friday called Bridges Symposium at KQED. Everyone is welcome to join that. And we also have a filmmaking workshop with Rainbow Community Center on June 4th. And we have a bunch of filmmaking summer programs. So please check out the BAVC Media website or the Rainbow Center websites as well. Yeah, once again, thank you for attending our queer filmmaking panel. I appreciate everyone for joining and participating, and I hope everyone has a good evening.